3 ways to hurt a narcissist without chasing them and make them lose control. What if the best way to hurt a narcissist is not to attack them, but to take away their control over you? When someone depends on your reactions, attention, and emotional energy, your detachment can become their biggest shock. Today, we'll explore 3 powerful ways to break the cycle and make a narcissist realize they can no longer control your emotions. And the most important part is this: you don't need revenge or cruelty to reclaim your power. The first way is to stop giving them emotional reactions when they deliberately provoke you. A narcissist may criticize you, twist your words, start an argument, or say something cruel simply to trigger you. They may know exactly which words make you angry, defensive, jealous, or desperate to prove yourself. And every time you react as expected, they learn that they still have access to your emotions. But imagine something completely different happening the next time they provoke you. They provoke you, but instead of exploding, you remain calm and refuse to give them the reaction they wanted. You don't defend every detail, explain every decision, or desperately try to make them understand you. You simply recognize what is happening and refuse to participate in the emotional battle. That calmness can be powerful because their usual strategy suddenly stops producing the reaction they expect. They may become more aggressive, emotional, or strangely affectionate when they realize their usual buttons no longer work. They might start wondering, why isn't this person reacting like before? And that question becomes uncomfortable when they realize something inside you has fundamentally changed. You are no longer allowing another person to control your emotional state simply because they know which button to push. Staying calm does not mean accepting disrespect or pretending harmful behavior is acceptable. It means choosing your response instead of allowing their behavior to determine how you react. The second way is to stop giving them unlimited access to your attention. This is where many people unknowingly give away their power without realizing how much energy they are spending. You check their messages, watch their social media, analyze their behavior, and wonder what every little action could mean. You may spend hours thinking about what they said, why they disappeared, or whether they are trying to get your attention. Even when you are not speaking, they can still occupy a huge amount of space inside your mind. That means the connection continues emotionally, even when there is physical distance. Now imagine taking that attention back and putting it somewhere that improves your own life. Instead of monitoring them, focus on your goals, friendships, work, routines, confidence, and personal growth. Stop checking whether they noticed your absence and stop creating strategies designed to make them miss you. Simply begin living without constantly wondering what they might think, feel, or do next. That shift is powerful because your attention is no longer something they can automatically access. And if they suddenly appear again, you do not immediately abandon your peace simply because they sent a message. You pause, observe their behavior, and decide whether responding actually serves your emotional well-being. This matters because unhealthy narcissistic dynamics can survive through surprisingly small amounts of attention. A message, argument, jealous reaction, or angry response can keep the emotional connection alive. But when you stop feeding that cycle, the dynamic gradually loses the energy that kept it going. They may try harder to get a reaction, but your responsibility is not to prove that you can ignore them. Your responsibility is to build a life where their attention simply becomes less important. And that brings us to the third way, which may be the most powerful one. Stop trying to make them recognize your worth. When someone repeatedly dismisses, criticizes, or devalues you, you naturally want them to understand what they lost. You may dream about the moment when they realize they treated you badly and admit that you deserved better. You may want them to regret losing you, apologize sincerely, and finally understand your value. But here is the uncomfortable truth that can completely change your perspective. The more desperately you need someone to recognize your worth, the more power you give them over your self-esteem. Your worth does not increase when they praise you, appreciate you, or suddenly decide you are valuable. And your worth does not disappear because they criticize you, reject you, or refuse to acknowledge what you gave. Your value existed before they entered your life, and it remains even if they disappear from your future. So instead of proving your importance, start living from the belief that you already matter without their confirmation. Stop explaining why you deserve respect, kindness, honesty, and basic consideration. Stop begging someone to treat you properly when their repeated behavior already shows what they are willing to give. Stop presenting endless evidence about why you are worthy of love, loyalty, appreciation, and genuine effort. Instead, watch what they actually do when their words are no longer enough to convince you. Look for consistency rather than promises, because beautiful words mean little when painful behavior keeps repeating. Look for accountability rather than excuses, because genuine change requires someone to acknowledge their actions. Look for genuine respect rather than temporary affection, because intense attention can disappear quickly. And most importantly, look at patterns instead of isolated moments, because one good day cannot erase months of unhealthy behavior. Someone can say everything you want to hear while continuing the exact behavior that caused you pain. Real change is not proven by an emotional speech, dramatic apology, or temporary affection. It is proven through consistent behavior over time, especially when they no longer feel guaranteed access to you. And this is where you may discover something surprisingly powerful about the situation you have been trying to control. The goal was never really to make a narcissist break down and submit to you. The real goal is becoming so emotionally independent that you no longer need them to submit, apologize, regret losing you, or validate you. That is a completely different kind of power, because it does not depend on controlling another person's emotions. You are no longer trying to control, punish, manipulate, or force them to understand what they did. You are controlling your access, attention, boundaries, and response when someone tries pulling you back into the old cycle. And that can transform the dynamic, because they can no longer rely on the version of you who reacted automatically. They may test your boundaries, become charming, act distant, or accuse you of changing when they notice that you are different. They may attempt guilt, anger, silence, affection, promises, or emotional pressure, because those tactics may have worked before. But you no longer judge their words alone, because you have learned to watch what happens afterward. You watch whether their behavior has changed, whether their actions match their promises, and whether their respect continues when they don't get what they want. And if nothing genuinely changes, your boundaries remain in place instead of disappearing, because they temporarily became nicer. That is what many people misunderstand about dealing with narcissistic behavior. You do not need to destroy someone emotionally to escape their control or prove that you are stronger. You simply need to stop giving them the emotional access that allows their behavior to control your life. You do not need to make them jealous, create competition, or manipulate their emotions just to make them feel what you once felt. You do not need to punish them with calculated silence or become cruel because someone treated you badly. Your greatest advantage is emotional independence, because independence makes manipulation far less effective. When they can no longer control your mood, attention, or sense of worth, the old dynamic begins losing its foundation. So remember these 3 powerful shifts whenever you feel pulled back into the same exhausting cycle. Stop reacting emotionally to deliberate provocation when you recognize that the reaction is exactly what they want. Stop giving unlimited attention to someone who uses it to control your emotions and keep you mentally attached. And stop seeking validation from someone who repeatedly makes you question your value, because your worth should never depend on them. The moment you stop trying to make them suffer is often the moment you begin becoming truly free. And that is the kind of breakdown that matters most, not watching another person fall apart, but watching yourself escape the cycle. Your victory is not making them submit, chase you, regret you, or suffer because you walked away. Your victory is reaching the point where you no longer need their approval, attention, apology, regret, or validation to feel whole. And once you reach that point, they may still try to pull you back, but you are no longer the same person they once controlled.